Hey, I want to tell you about Moto Brand. Moto Brand was founded during the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic when the sport that we live for was taken from so many of us, whether it's cycling or moto. Waking up on a Saturday morning knowing that your local track was closed, there would be no Supercross, and for many of us that we couldn't even hit our favorite local riding spot or trail with our crew. We are forced to be reminded of how much the sport of moto and cycling truly means to us. Moto Brand represents a collection of individuals that not only ride, but live to ride. It's what we think of at all times of the day, and sometimes at a detriment to your relationship with your significant other. It's for those that look at their motorcycle or their bicycle as part of their identity. Maybe it's the way that you bond with your son or your daughter or your spouse. Perhaps it's your way to blow off stress of your day job, or even, hey, it is what it is, maybe even it's your marriage. This sport is more than just a sport. For many of us, it's a way of life. It's what keeps us ticking. It's what keeps us living. Moto Brand was created for a purpose, to be more than just a shirt that you can throw on in the morning, but these designs represent who you are and what you stand for. So I encourage you to head over to themotobrand.com, check out our collection. We have a pedal collection and we have a throttle collection, and there are more designs to come that stand for something. So head over to themotobrand.com and we'll see you there. Hey, right now Racer X is offering a pretty exciting promotion free to sign up for the magazine. If you go to racerxonline.com/moto marketing, anybody that subscribes right now is automatically entered into a pool for an opportunity to win your very own Specialized Turbo Levo. Now, anybody that follows me knows I'm an e-bike enthusiast, along with our friends at the Pulp MX Show and Steve Mathis. We love e-bikes. We have an e-bike team at Impakt, and we're all about it. And you can win your very own Turbo Levo, which is specialized, top-of-the-line, pedal assist mountain bike. It's what I personally ride, and I can tell you, man, they are a blast. So go over to racerxonline.com/moto marketing for your opportunity to get your very own e-bike.
Welcome to the Moto Marketing Podcast, presented by Racer X, the podcast for moto industry professionals, entrepreneurs, and riders. If you want to grow your brand and business in today's digital-first world, you have to know how to turn a stranger into a fan, turn a like into a customer. You have to know how to turn attention into dollars. This podcast is dedicated to keeping you in the know on real marketing tactics that work in the moto world so that you grow your business and help grow the sport. Get ready to learn from the very same marketing experts trusted by Racer X, Lucas Oil Pro Motocross, GNCC, and NBC Sports. They'll help you navigate the world of digital marketing for your moto brand. This is the Moto Marketing Podcast. Presented by Racer X.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast. I am really excited today. Most of you that listen to the show know I'm an avid cyclist of all kinds, BMX, mountain bikes, EMTB. We have the race team. So I geek out over bikes, right? It's my first love, right there with motocross. One of the series that I watch most often just to learn about how to set my suspension up and just because it's interesting is Fox's Dialed series. My guest today is Jordi Cortes. He is the race department manager at Fox. And he happens to be somebody that listens to the show. So he DM'd me one day after one of the episodes where I'd referenced him in the Race Tech episode, and I was like, man, I got to jump on this because there's a pretty unique story that just explains how powerful content marketing is. And so many of you that ride moto also ride bikes. So, Jordi, welcome to the show. Thrilled to have you, and I appreciate you making time for us.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
So, for those that don't follow the series or don't really know who you are,
Most people.
You're probably pretty modest. So, I'll let everybody know my opinion of who you are. You're the foremost suspension guru in the sport. I think most experts, most professionals, the World Cup guys at the top of that series would agree with me on that. What is it that you do when somebody says, hey, so what do you do at Fox?
It usually takes me a minute. I have to think about it for a while. Like, what do I do? But I guess basically I run our race department. So anything that has to do with bike racing goes through my department. Mm-hmm. More specifically, I work with our top World Cup, EWS, and well, that's it actually. I was thinking downhill, cross country, EWS. I work with them to ensure that we're giving them everything that they can get out of the suspension and other things as well, whether it's bike fit or mental side or whatever I can do to help.
Yeah.
Basically, my job is to help Fox win races.
And what's interesting is I had never heard of you until last year. And I started to watch, was last year the first year of the Dialed series?
Yeah.
Okay.
The first year of Dialed, yeah.
So I started to watch as I got more out of BMX racing and in more to mountain biking. I did not understand suspension. I mean, I grew up racing a 20-inch rigid BMX bike. So suspension to me was completely foreign. In the way that RockShox positioned it as compared to your main competitor, as Fox positioned it as compared to your main competitor, RockShox, you guys put out a lot of content that is engaging and intriguing. It doesn't just promote the product, it shows you guys behind the scenes working with your athletes. So I'd never heard of you until that series. And a year later, I look at you and your team as the experts. I look at your product as the best out there because of this video series. But you're not a marketing department guy. So what was your opinion of that when somebody came to you and said, "Hey, we're gonna follow you around with a camera and record all this"? Or was that your idea?
No, it wasn't my idea. I think it really started with the Syndicate team and the This Is PD episodes that then kind of just morphed into the Syndicate episodes because we work so closely with those guys.
Okay. So you were around that and kind of saw what that was doing for that company and that team.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, our guys kind of said, hey, we could take this and build on it and really get a more personal approach to behind the scenes at the races, giving people an idea of what goes on, and through that kind of helping people understand what they can do to make their experience better.
Yeah. It's crazy how powerful something as simple as a vlog or a produced video and consistency can be, because like I said, I mean, I'll use the story that inspired me to have Jordi on today. So one of the bikes that I own is a Specialized Levo. It's the pedal assist mountain bike. We race it, ride it, have fun with it, whatever. Well, it came spec'd out with Fox's competitor, RockShox. I've never had an issue with it. However, I wanted more and I wanted to learn more. And there wasn't that content there by that company for me to learn how to tune and just really get my settings dialed in on my current setup. What I was always watching was Fox's video series, and I was watching Jordi working with the top athletes in cycling to dial in, no pun intended, to dial in their setup. So this year, when you guys released your a ton of new products, you came out with new fork options, new shock options. I dropped a lot of money and went. I there was nothing wrong with my current setup, but I'm stripping it all off and moving over to the competitor, which is Fox, because of one thing, and it's the video series that you guys put out there. I know that's not the first time you've heard that. So have you guys been able to see a difference from people showing more interest in the product? Maybe this newest product launch, was there a difference from previous product launches?
I think so. You'd have to know a little bit of history of Fox, which is that we were started by an engineer and we never really did marketing. We always built this really high-end product that was maybe a bit daunting for a lot of people. it's got more adjustment, it's more capable, but you can go wrong.
Yeah.
And that kind of took us on this path of, well, instead of dumbing our stuff down, why don't we make people smarter about what these products do and allow you to do exactly what you wanted to do, which is get more out of it.
Yeah. I think that's something that so many moto brands can learn, because there's so many aftermarket parts that are sold for a motorcycle that I like to ride, but I don't know how to set this thing up, and nobody's really putting that content out. And your guys' products do have a lot more adjustability than your competitors, which for somebody that doesn't know what they're doing, I mean, Josh, our producer behind the camera, is brand new into mountain biking as well. He would have no idea how to set it up, and the problem before was there was no option for that out there. Well, you guys come along with this series that's not necessarily just a boring tutorial how-to. It's a mixture of behind the scenes of you guys working with the greatest athletes on earth, and now you've kind of pivoted because the series is put on hold. You're doing these tech tips, how-tos, how do you use our product, and you're doing it in an engaging way, which is exactly what sold me, and I'm sure so many others, to make that move over. Were you receptive or nervous, or was there pushback from you specifically, or I guess other people on your team, to be followed around by cameras when you guys first were told, hey, we're going to start doing this?
I was really into it because
that's awesome.
I've always wanted to speak to a broader audience. Not like personally, I don't want to be famous, I don't want to do anything, but I want people, I know the feeling of being daunted by something, and not being able to dig up information, which is pretty odd these days. But if you do a Google search on setting up my suspension, you're going to get some pretty random ideas. So if I can put the marketing speak aside and just head straight to the point of how do I make my bike work, I was pretty excited to do that.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Other people on the team maybe not quite so much. So they didn't really want to deal with cameras and things like that. But
I think that's the norm, is most people kind of default to they're nervous, or I mean, look, we hear it all the time. It's everything from I sound weird, or I look fat, or I don't have time for that. But it's when you see somebody that's never done it before with a very confusing product for somebody that doesn't understand the technology and what your series has done, I think, the proof is in the pudding. And something that I want to talk a little bit about is, obviously, with everything that's gone on so far in 2020, you guys had to make a rapid adjustment with the series, and it would have been really easy for you to just say, hey, we're not going to do the video series until racing starts back up. But that's not what you did. So if somebody sees the dialed episodes that have happened in the last 60 to 90 days, they look very different than last year.
They do.
What went into that, as far as being like, okay, guys, we've got to pivot and figure out a way to figure out to decide how are we going to continue to put content out that keeps us relevant in this time, since we can't go racing? What did that look like?
Yeah, that was, the decision to do it was quick. We took a little break trying to scramble around and figure out what was going on. But the decision that we wanted to keep going happened basically right away. We just had to figure out how to do it. And as I said, I'm not a marketing guy. I don't know how to do I don't know any of the keywords. I don't know what I'm doing, really. I was a tech guy. So trying to figure out exactly how to speak to people and spread the message. And it's really just Jake and myself for the most part. Half the time we're coming up with ideas the day before we're supposed to shoot the video, or the day we are shooting the video.
Yeah.
So it was pretty interesting, kind of pivoting from knowing exactly what I'm doing with plenty of footage to pick from, to sitting in my yard not being able to go anywhere with an iPhone filming myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people complaining of bird noises.
So when we come back, we're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, I want to dive into that a little bit more and talk about Jake, or as I referenced him at the beginning before we hit record, was, hey, who's the guy that lives in the van that pulls all this together? I want to talk to Jordi about Jake and kind of what else is on the horizon for Fox. So we'll dive into that when we come back. Hey, big shout out to our friends at FMF. Little D and the guys are always doing some pretty exciting things, not just with the performance products, but man, they've got the coolest apparel in the game, and I want to give you guys an opportunity to get that at a little bit of a discount. If you go to FMF and pick up any gear you'd like, hats, shirts, whatever it is, upon checkout, if you enter the code MMP30, MMP30, you can get 30% off. So MMP30 at checkout and get 30% off your order on FMF Apparel. Hey, I want to tell you about our friends over at Evil Coffee. And when I say friends, I genuinely mean it. We use their product here. We enjoy their product here. We are coffee addicts here at the Moto Marketing Podcast Studio and the Impakt Results offices. We've got baristas that work for us. We've got espresso machines, multiple coffee machines. We dig our coffee, and we dig Evil Coffee. It's specialty coffee grown in Costa Rica and small batch roasted right in Columbus, Ohio, which is pretty much our backyard. So what is specialty coffee? It's coffee beans that have been scored 80 points or above on the 100-point coffee review scale, where aroma, acidity, body, and flavor are all taken into account. Evil exclusively roasts specialty Costa Rican coffee due to its lower acidity and robust flavor profiles. Not going to lie, it's one of the only coffees that I've been able to drink black. I normally put some almond milk in it, but man, I can actually drink this stuff just straight out of the pot, right? Or even better, out of the espresso machine. So something else that they're doing, if you're tired of running out of coffee, or even worse, going to the store to get your coffee, Evil Coffee Club is the solution to ensure you always are stocked up on the freshest, best tasting coffee available. Here's how it works. Once you hit subscribe, you'll be prompted to pick your roast and then your preferred bean style. You can feel free to mix and match, and what they'll do is they'll take care of the rest and deliver it straight to your doorstep every single month. So check out evilcoffeecompany.com and set yourself up, man. I mean, it's really good. And here's the even cooler thing. They're Moto guys, right? These guys are into Moto, and I like to support people that are into Moto, even when they have a product that isn't necessarily Moto oriented. So go over to evilcoffeecompany.com, tell them that Luke from the Moto Marketing Podcast sent you, and enjoy yourself a fresh cup of the Evil Coffee Company Go Juice. All right, welcome back. So we have Jordi Cortes, the Global Race Department Manager at Fox, and we're talking about, you know, just the video content that they've done. And really, you know, Jordi had said your brand has really never done much marketing, and I think if this is really one of the first and only things you guys have done, I mean, it's a success, because I know if it's helping me, you know, convert as a customer, it's definitely working on others. And you know, at the beginning of the show, or before the beginning of the show, before we hit record, I said, hey, who's the guy that's making all the videos with you guys right now when you're on lockdown? The guy that lives in the van. You said his name's Jake. And I thought was interesting was Jake didn't exist last year in the Dialed series. He wasn't who was creating it. So you guys have decided to go more all in on building this thing out, this Dialed series out, and you bring Jake on. So kind of talk to me about how that went. Like, what did that conversation look like to where somebody was like, hey, I think we should bring somebody on full time to be the videographer for this?
Well, it started last year, and we used Connor because he was already part of Raceface. He's an in-house videographer, but the guy has a kid. He's got a full-time job at Raceface, so he's doing other work as well. And that production schedule was gnarly.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they're filming all day during the World Cups, which, you know, end at 5 or 6 o'clock. Then he goes and edits till 1 a.m, gets out an episode, gets up at 7 or 8 to do it again for 5 days in a row.
That's
and
insane.
It just wasn't supportable.
No. Yeah, that's insane. So for those that might be listening and are confused and like, well, Raceface, what's that? So Fox is part of a collective of brands. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And Raceface is one of those, which Connor, who produced last year's Dialed series, was part of that brand. So you guys just decided, hey, let's bring a guy on specifically for this series in Fox.
Yeah, so Jake submitted a video to the Raceface Makers series, and everybody was really stoked on it. We interviewed a few different people. He really seemed to fit the bill. He and his partner Schaefer, who was scheduled to be working with us as well until everything got shut down. So then we just worked with Jake to do these kind of remote iPhone video series that we've been doing lately.
Yeah. And I think
we're hoping to get them both back.
I think those videos are, look, they're not as robust and maybe as engaging for some as what happened last year because you guys were at the races and whatever. But I think as somebody that is in charge of making the decisions at a brand as far as, hey, what are we going to do with marketing? And, oh, this curveball got thrown at us. The person that's going to make the decision on what happens next needs to look at what you guys have done at Fox because, again, like I said before, it would have been really easy for you guys to say, you know what, whenever we go racing again, we'll start creating these. But you didn't use excuses. You created what you're able to create, and those videos are what sold me on purchasing your all's new product during the drop or during the new launch. And if you wouldn't have been doing that, you wouldn't have had any videos up because you didn't have access to the races. So I think go watch the Dialed series, watch last year's because it's super engaging, but watch what they're doing right now because it's literally, you'll have a camera in your backyard. You'll be on Zoom or FaceTime or whatever you guys are using. Jake will have the same setup in his van, which I assume that's where he's living out of right now. He's got one of those awesome mobile home units set up, and he pieces all those videos together and creates a really engaging piece of content every time you guys have done it. Even though you're in the same spot in your backyard and he's in the same spot in his van, you guys have made it super intriguing, so it's impressive.
I really appreciate that because it has been hard.
Yeah, I'm sure.
At least for me, it's not what I'm used to doing.
Yeah.
And every time I submit footage to Jake, we do it together. We're on FaceTime and then I'm filming and whatever. But when we're done, I'm always just thinking, oh man, this is going to be horrible. I just rambled on and forgot things. And then Jake comes up and edits everything and it looks like a real video.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I think it's cool too to where you can tell in some of these videos to where Jake is upgrading his suspension. He's not a suspension guru, which I think works out really well because you're the guru. He's the video creator, but it works out very well. Chris Riesenberg from Race Tech had mentioned the same thing on not my show, but another show he was on. Somebody asked him a suspension question, and he's like, he was like, I'm not the expert. So I think that's okay, and people need to understand that if you're the content creator, if you're the marketing guy, sometimes it works out for you to admit that you're not the expert, but then identify someone like Jordi in the brand that you can turn to for that expert advice and spotlight them and showcase them as well. So.
I don't think an expert would have worked in our case because I need that average consumer feedback.
Exactly.
If I spout off on something that makes no sense, I need Jake to go, so you mean it's like this? Go, that's exactly what I'm trying to say.
Yes. So I always kind of find it funny how the horror stories and the funny stories that come out of motocross and supercross mechanics as far as, how sensitive the riders are to their suspension. And sometimes, they think they need to make a drastic adjustment and really there's not much that needs to be made at all. It's the rider that needs to get used to it. So moving away from kind of the marketing talk just to more of the rider and the product talk, how much is that the same in EWS and downhill and cross country to where obviously the suspension, there's a ton of technology behind it, but what are some of the funny things or the annoying things that you guys see and deal with as far as these athletes coming up and trying to get their suspension setup really dialed in?
Yeah, we see a lot of the same things, I think.
Sure.
I think most of it's just being an athlete with all the stress that you're dealing with and the stress to perform and the expectations put on you, that you're gonna be pretty tweaky most of the time.
Yeah.
But we definitely see that. I think the one consistent thing we see is that race to race, you show up, you do track walk. The next day you get practice for a couple hours, and pretty much to a T, they'll start on the race setup from the weekend before, or 2 weeks, or sometimes a month before, which is crazy.
Yeah.
These big gaps in between races. So they'll get up there and do their first run on their race suspension from whenever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's horrible. It's unrideable. It's too stiff. It doesn't work.
I'm sure
and
that sounds
I'm the
familiar.
guy sitting going, hey, just relax.
Yeah.
It's the first run. You're going to ride into this stuff. Don't start making changes. Oh, no, can't do it. It's going to be horrible. So then, you soften everything up. Couple more runs. Oh, man, it's too soft.
Yeah.
Bottoming everywhere. Like, yeah, I know. All right. Let's just go back where we were. Let's start over again. And it's like this Groundhog Day of just going through the motions again.
Yeah.
But I get it. Like, you're asked to perform at 100%. And if you perform at 99%, you're probably going to lose.
Yeah.
I mean, the times are incredibly tight now.
Yeah, and I think maybe more so than, and I might be wrong in saying this, but maybe more so than on a motorcycle, I think the suspension, especially for more of the gravity-oriented athletes, that suspension is similar to the importance of the motor on a motorcycle, more so than the suspension on a motorcycle, because that's what's getting them down the track of the day the fastest. So something that you don't see in motorcycle racing, whether it's Supercross or Motocross, that you do see in mountain biking is the mechanic is really the guy that's in charge of dialing in the suspension for these motocross and Supercross athletes, whereas it seems like at these World Cups, the mechanic brings the product to you guys. Is that like that with all of the Fox athletes, or why is that they're that difference? I assume the mechanics are knowledgeable and can definitely dial in suspension, but yet they still bring them to you guys. What is that, the reason for that?
I don't know. I mean, I know that 90% of the mechanics can't, at least where I'm working.
Okay.
There's a few that kind of get it, but you still get wrapped up in going in a particular direction. I think the biggest thing is that I'm working with 15 or 20 people. Mm-hmm. So I have some relevance to look through. I can see patterns. I can figure things out.
Yeah.
And when you're only working with one person, you can go off on a tangent and not really find the proper setup quick enough.
Sure.
We actually request that everybody brings the suspension to us so that we can go through everything, make sure everything's proper and ready to race. For one thing, it helps us with product development because we can see patterns, we can see issues before they really show up in consumer products.
Yeah.
And for another thing, it's to ensure that I know that if I do it, that chances are it's right.
Exactly. Yeah, I always
and
I found that
sometimes. Sorry, go ahead.
I said I just found that interesting, just watching how involved the suspension brand is at a World Cup cycling event, as opposed to you don't see Chris Riesenberg and his team at Race Tech having to go to every Supercross race and every motocross race and dialing in the suspension for their athletes. It's just the difference between the two sports, and I found that interesting.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of experience with seeing how it's run from the moto side, but that would be interesting to me for sure.
Yeah. So have you had any fan experiences yet to where people that have watched the series have come by just to see Jordi? And there's some other characters that are on every single one of the episodes when you're at the races, to where I'm sure they have people that recognize him. I mean, is that weird to you? Like, when I'm sure people have asked you to get a photo with you and whatnot. What's that like?
It's super weird.
I'm sure. Yeah.
But I still kind of look around like, who?
Yeah,
You want me to draw something on your shirt? That's weird.
Has there ever been that occurrence to where there is the athlete that they should be asking for an interaction with, and they're like, hey, and then they don't want them, they want to talk to you?
No, not you.
Yeah, that's hilarious. I'm sure that's happened more than once. So what, as we kind of wrap things up, what does your all season look like as of right now? I know they announced the schedule, and I assume everything's still technically kind of up in the air, but what does that look like for you guys to where you're possibly going to be back racing and the original dial or the normal dialed videos are going to look more like last year?
Well, yeah, they did announce a schedule. They've already altered that schedule once now. The second race was Val di Sole in Italy, which unfortunately has already been canceled for the second time.
Oh, that's a bummer. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a bummer. And I totally get it. I mean, everybody was kind of looking at that schedule like, you sure about this?
Yeah.
But for now, we have everything lined up and we're ready to start moving forward. But we're really not going to pull the trigger on anything until it's a little more solidified. But that being said, I lost you for a second.
You're good.
Somebody,
you're back.
Somebody called. So we are scheduled to pick up like the old dialed for the first race. Well, probably a week before, kind of a mad rush to prep everything and get everything shipped out. That's as awesome. Everybody's kind of not really had time off, but we've definitely put things on the back burner and focused on other priorities for now. And then it'll be this mad rush to get 2 months of racing a whole season of racing crammed into 2 months.
Will you guys do anything with the Olympics next year? Like, were you going to be at the Olympics this year for the cross-country athletes, or is it not as involved?
We've never been before. The cross-country athletes are, for the most part, pretty self-supported. Mm-hmm. You know, they have spare parts and they take off and go. I'd love to go to the Olympics, but pretty much everything I've heard is that it's just a complete catastrophe to get anything done as an independent. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, like, you're not going to get close to the venue. You're not going to be in there helping people.
Yeah, I see.
So, and it's probably pretty expensive.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it is. Well, I'm stoked to have you on. There's so many cyclists or motocross athletes that use cycling as training or just as a stress relief. There's so many media guys now that do it, and it's funny how big e-biking has become in moto because of some of the bigger media influencers like Steve Mathis and Swap Moto Live and those guys. So I was excited to have you on. I've got some ideas of some additional content that we might be able to do with you that we'll talk about offline. But man, your series is impressive. For anybody that might not have seen it yet in the moto space, I can't encourage you enough to go look at it. Watch last year's. Watch what they've done in 2020 when they got the curveball thrown at them and how they shifted. And you said it was a quick decision, and I think that's super impressive. There was no thought to it. Let's continue on with it. That's something that needs to be replicated in moto. And again, the big reason, Jordi, that I had you come on is I want moto brands to look at what someone that has a complex, to some confusing product, how are they creating engaging marketing content that helps you understand how to use it, and then obviously gets you attached to that brand so that when there is a new launch, or they buy from you and not the competitor next time. So definitely model what Fox has done. It's very impressive. So I appreciate you being on with us today.
I really appreciate the kind words. It means a lot. I mean, it's definitely a big priority on my schedule.
And the YouTube channel, for those so that they find the right one. What's the YouTube channel?
It's the Ride Fox Bike YouTube channel.
Okay, perfect. So
and you can find it on Instagram as well as Ride Fox Bike. A lot of times it's crossover with Ride Fox. So
awesome.
And it's not Fox Clothing, you guys.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, make sure.
Or Fox News.
It's definitely not Fox News. Yeah,
we get both of those.
I watch Ride Fox Bike a ton more than Fox or any other news outlet. So yeah, especially today. Today. All right, man. I appreciate you being on with us.
Thanks so much.
Cool.
Thank you for listening to the Moto Marketing Podcast. If your goal is to get real, measurable results from your marketing that will grow your company revenue, then check out how Impakt Media can get the same results that they have for Moto's most iconic brands by visiting thinkimpakt.com. That's THINKIMPAKT.com. Have a marketing question that you want answered on the show? Send your questions to questions@motomarketingpodcast.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast.